Some of the trends we are seeing at Walkers are interesting. Obviously, a lot of continued interest in captive establishments, etc. But I think post-crisis, a lot of the interest that we are seeing is a sort of a leveraging of our existing client base in other sectors. So the funds industry, private equity, structured finance participants, they are now quite interested in insurance products and how they can use insurance as a tool in a structure that they are putting together. So that's quite interesting because they're coming from different backgrounds, but they're very interested in the sector. Also, one area that is interesting, and I think it will be a trend, and there's increased focus on longevity issues and on mortality. So we'd be looking at more life entities, more wealth management, more maybe private placement life type entities, and particular structures, and the type of participants I mentioned there on the structured finance or investment funds or private equity. They are looking at solutions for workers' unions, for pension funds, for sovereigns who have these unfunded or not fully funded commitments. For example, for retirees who are living longer than their original tables expected. So that is something we're seeing more interest in, and we think in the future there will be more structures. And again, Cayman, given its existing client base, its legal and regulatory framework, and the fact that it has always been a home for innovation, is best placed to facilitate these new structures, in my view.
You're absolutely right, and it's a fantastic opportunity for Cayman because I think our traditional market segment is now changing. Yeah. Our usual point of entry historically was the risk manager or the financial controller and the CFO. Now we're being exposed to this entire new market and so many different perspectives that it creates challenges for us, obviously, to try and increase the standard of our output and the quality of the people that you have here and become more of a generalist, right? KPMG and Aon worked on a transaction this year, Dara, where we had on that closed life book of business where we're trying to strip out the volatility for the client, and that we feel very bullish about as a huge opportunity area of growth for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in my view, the captive industry and the hedge fund industry or the alternative investment industry in the Cayman Islands have kind of been two industries that have merged independently of each other, and I'm seeing a lot of overlap now between the two, where the traditional captive insurance companies are replacing vanilla types of investments of bonds and equities with funds, hedge funds, and in return what I'm seeing is a lot of the private equity houses and investment interest in using insurance structures as a new type of product to securitize risk and sell that to the capital markets. So there's a perfect symbiosis between the two, and I think Derek, on your point, Cayman's a great place to establish those types of structures.
Cayman as a jurisdiction has always been a strong healthcare jurisdiction.
Sure.
The market in the US at the moment is undergoing fundamental and radical change, and some of our clients are at the forefront of that and really capitalizing on it. And there's other clients who are struggling with it. We're right in the middle. We're thrust in the middle of it as partners with these clients in terms of trying to help them deal with the M&A activity that is going on within the market at the moment. Clients of ours who are acquiring other entities, there's captives that come with those, so we're being asked to try and merge the captives or look at them from the feasibility of whether we can maintain the two of them or shut some of them down. And so I think at the same time, we as an industry have to adapt. Our traditional model from an insurance management perspective is changing. Clients are looking to us to add value, to bring a different range and depth and quality of service to bear that maybe we have done heretofore.
I mean, Cayman, being the leaders in the healthcare captive industry, having faced that change in reform in the US regarding the healthcare there, I mean, obviously there's a huge impact in the Cayman Islands on that. We're seeing a lot of our captives, merge. We've seen other captives where there is a large parent healthcare organization in the US, and they're absorbing some of the smaller healthcare providers as a result of the change. We're seeing a lot of new coverages being provided, a lot of lost portfolio transfers into captives. As I mentioned, captives themselves, where two separate parents merge in the States, the captives are having to merge in the Cayman Islands. We're seeing other situations where there's a need to release some of the reserves in the captive so that some financing, redeployment of financing is available. And all these questions are coming to us as service providers. And we've shifted from a situation in the past where we were managing their business, auditing their business and filing that with the regulators, to a situation now where we're having to add value.
Sure.
The questions are coming at us and we're having to be, listen, understand what the changes that clients are facing and having to respond with appropriate solutions to help them with their strategies. Cayman, having a global market faces challenges in this dynamic world we're living in. I think one of the key challenges I see as an accountant or an auditor is changes in regulation, changes in global regulation, particularly where post-financial crisis, a lot of regulators have responded with increased regulation. Cayman's kind of maintained its competitiveness and its position because it brought about new rules or new laws and regulations that are proportional to the type of captive that's based in Cayman.
But don't you guys find that our traditional services that we've offered have to adapt now to be able to take into account the more onerous requirements from a regulatory perspective? We as managers have a greater responsibility now to challenge some of the boards in terms of their efficiency, in terms of their makeup, and in terms of some of the areas that maybe they're not looking at. And we have an increased obligation. I'm sure you as auditors and you as lawyers have that same obligation.
Absolutely, you're right. I think the changes in the law have increased the responsibilities for the manager and the auditor.
But not only that, the legal and regulatory framework in Cayman is designed to be proportional. So the amount of resources, costs, etc., that you have to allocate to a particular structure or particular captive will be proportionate to the volume and the complexity of the business it is doing, and that so not having a one size fits all is extremely important, and it's extremely important for attracting new entrants to the market here in Cayman.
And attracting new entrants to the market kind of brings about another challenge when globally the number of jurisdictions opened up, particularly in the United States, has created new competitive pressures on the Cayman Islands. However, Cayman Islands, having had 40 years of experience, has really developed its own centre of excellence for captive insurance companies. I know we've had clients look to go onshore, and as part of their due diligence process, they realise that the quality really is in the Cayman Islands and similar jurisdictions where the captive industry has been at its forefront for a good number of years.
Sure, we've seen that. And actually, in fact, a lot of our current Aon clients are coming under pressure within their own home jurisdictions from their local regulators asking would they consider coming back onshore, and they've asked us to help them have those conversations. And so we as a manager down here have had to face up to the reality of the increased competition from onshore. I mean, we as Aon, we can manage them anywhere onshore that they want to go, but we often remind the client, look, you've got to look at the infrastructure that surrounds your captive. You have to look at the managers that have the experience. Do you have actuaries with experience? Do you have lawyers who know the business? Do you have auditors who know the business? And once you look at that team that's surrounding the captive, then it's an easier conversation to have. There are some that politically will just feel the optics for them are better to be onshore, and we have to address that. But I think fundamentally those that really understand the business, the sophisticated clients, will generally end up staying with the jurisdiction that has 40 years plus experience.
Yeah. So in my experience, clients are always amazed at the responsiveness and the approachability of CIMA. The fact that CIMA effectively can participate, albeit somewhat softly, in the structuring process. If there's something, if there's sort of some red flags, they can be addressed up front, and it just makes the process much smoother. We have offices in a number of jurisdictions. We get exposure to a number of other regulators quite a lot, and absolutely there's no question our experience from CIMA is that they are a participant. They're working with us, and they will do what is needed to help us and a client get a
well, it's a collaboration, right?
Yes,
I mean, as an industry, I think it's a collaboration between us all. That rising tide lifts all boats, and I think if we have taken a lot of those initiatives together as an industry for Cayman Inc. in being able to move forward as a group. you could almost see the trends reflected in the changing agenda for the captive conference in December.
Yeah.
If you look at the agenda from 10 years ago and look at the agenda now, it's catering to a different market. And the captive conference of itself is a fantastic example of Cayman as a jurisdiction, how we've grown, how we've matured as a jurisdiction, and how we've captured certain segments of the market. I mean, what are we at? Facing are we 1,300 attendees this year with the way we're looking for December?
Yeah, no,
it's a wonderful opportunity for Cayman to showcase its talent, right?
We're at 1,100 at the moment, I believe, which is about 100 up this time last year. Every year the captive conference has grown, and it's to the point now where it is the single largest captive conference attendance in the world.